Here we go. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Winning the Game of Business Live. Now, today we're going to talk about something that most leaders don't even realise they're doing. You, yes you, and me are drug dealers. Now, before you roll your eyes and log off, let me explain. Every time you lead, every word you say, every tone you use, every decision you make means you're triggering chemicals in people's brains. And those chemicals are mostly dopamine, cortisol, serotonin, and oxytocin. And they act like drugs, and they're shaping how your team feels, behaves, and performs. So the question isn't if you're dealing drugs, it's which ones, what's the dosage, and how often. And over the next few minutes, we'll walk through these 4 leadership drugs, what they do, how they show up at work, and how you can use them in a more healthy and balanced way. Because great leadership isn't just about getting results. It's about managing the chemical experience that your people have when they work with you. Okay, let's get into it. Let's open the farm, so to speak. Now, we'll start with dopamine, which is the excitement drug. It's the reward drug. It's the hit of achievement. And some of the upsides to dopamine are that when you set a clear goal and you celebrate a win, dopamine surges. If you were to gamify a process or progress, for instance, we could let's hit 10 more calls before lunch. That can provide a dopamine hit. When someone gets public recognition or a bonus, dopamine. Now, with all these drugs, there are downsides. With dopamine, that can be, if dopamine is all you use, the constant chase and the constant targets. That's going to lead to a place where your team becomes addicted to the next hit, and you get dopamine junkies. People only take action when there's a prize, and in the long term, their motivation crashes. People burn out, or they could lose a sense of meaning. In terms of leadership balance, you want to use dopamine intentionally. Yes, celebrate progress, but don't make every task a transaction. A more useful way to dispense dopamine is to pair excitement with purpose. So remind your team why what they do and the work they're doing matters, not just what the reward is. Can you drop a thumbs up in the chat if you've ever led someone? It was amazing until the bonus disappeared. Now let's talk about cortisol. And cortisol is the fear or stress chemical. And even though it is the fear or stress chemical, it does have its upsides. Put your teeth in, Kev. Firstly, a tight deadline. That can trigger cortisol and it can sharpen focus. It can be useful in a crisis or a client emergency because cortisol can give you speed and clarity. And when dispensed correctly, it creates urgency and often performance spikes. Now, some of the downsides are that if you live in that fear and stress state for too long, it causes chaos. Have you ever worked for a boss where everything was an emergency? And that constant drip, drip, drip of cortisol often leads to anxiety, health issues, and eventually apathy. When every single week is a fire drill, people stop believing in the alarm. In terms of leadership balance, you'd be better reserving pressure for the moments that matter. And if you demand urgency, give your people support, make sure they've got the resources they need to succeed, and always, always follow it with some recovery time. Think about your last week. Were you fueling your team with clarity or cortisol? Let me know in the comments. Now, next up is serotonin, which is the pride chemical. And this one's about recognition, respect, and feeling valued. So an upside of serotonin would be when you say, I saw you how you handled a situation, and it was great. By doing that, what you've done is you've dosed the person that you're praising with serotonin. Another thing will be when a team shares wins publicly and they celebrate together. Serotonin rises. It's the long-term conference chemical. It's not a quick high, but but a stable sense of worth. Now, the downside is if you choose to ignore giving it out, your people will feel invisible. If you only recognize results, not effort, you'll create a fear of failure. And people will stop trying new things because they only get rewarded when it's perfect. From a point of view of leadership balance, you want to be recognizing effort and personalized praise and make it public. Don't just say something like good job. Say, I noticed the way you handled that tough client, and that made a real difference. So let me ask you, what's the best recognition you've ever received? Drop it in the chat, and I bet others will steal it from you. And then finally, we've got oxytocin, the connection drug. Now, this is the chemical behind trust, loyalty, and belonging, which has upsides. Now, when you ask about someone's weekend and actually care, they get a hit of oxytocin. When you remember their kids' names, celebrate birthdays, share wins, oxytocin. Oxytocin is what makes people stay in hard times. Because they're not just working for you, they're working with you. One of the downsides of oxytocin is without it, you might have compliance, but you won't get commitment. And people will do the minimum because they don't feel seen. So in terms of leadership balance, be present consistently and not just conveniently. Build trust in small daily doses because it's the compound interest of leadership. So let me ask you, who's one leader that made you feel genuinely cared for? And here's the truth. You're never not giving out just one drug. Every interaction you have releases a cocktail of chemicals, and the best leaders learn to mix them intentionally. So, in summary, dispense dopamine for excitement, cortisol for urgency, serotonin for pride, and oxytocin for trust. But, and it's a big but, use too much of one and your culture will go out of balance. But if you dispense them wisely, you'll create an environment where people perform because they want to, not because they have to. Okay, so look back at your week. Which chemical did you deal most? Which one did you neglect? And what's one shift you could make next week to your balance or to balance your leadership pharmacy? What kind of drug dealer are you? Are you fueling your team with excitement, fear, pride, or trust? Because the reality is the best leaders learn to blend these drugs on purpose. And if you want help identifying your own leadership mix, what you might be over or under dealing, I'd love to help you figure it out. Just message me after this live and we can have a conversation about how to build a more balanced high performance culture, one that runs on the right chemistry. So thanks for tuning in. And if this resonated with you, share your big learn in the chat or share this with a leader who might need a dose of reality. Because remember, leadership isn't just what you say, it's how you make people feel. Now, in the next live, I'm going to be discussing scaling, how to grow smart, stay profitable, and stop being the bottleneck in your own business. It's going to be a good one, so you won't want to miss it. Same time, same place, 3:30 UK time. Until then, keep winning this great game of business.